Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? Adjumants and a Job come to you guys here today with another deck tech. So, today we are going to be taking a look at a standard deck, and it is Naya Midrange. Now, with Naya Midrange, it's going to be one of the many decks that I'm running for the beginning of the Gatecrash season of Standard, and Naya Midrange didn't really change much. It still has the majority of the cards that it had in the previous season whenever Return to Ravnica was out, and now it's just adding in more cards, the dual lands as well. And we just have overall a kind of like a little bit of a better package going on for us as far as the cards that we have at our disposal. So we are going to jump right on into it, but if you guys have any suggestions for decks that you would like to see, please leave that down in the comments below and I'll take it into consideration for future deck techs. So the first thing that we are taking a look at here is the land base of the deck. So we have 23 lands, starting off with Stomping Grounds. So Stomping Grounds is going to be a playset for us. Put that up there. We also have a playset of Temple Garden, 2 Sacred Foundry, so 10 Shocklands total. And then we have our other dual lands. We have our playset of Sunpetal Grove. Fix that a little bit. And we have our playset of Rootbound Crag. For utility lands, we have 2 Kessig Wolf Run to be able to take all of our surplus mana and put it into buffing up a creature and giving it trample. So Kessig Wolf Run is a perfectly good means of being able to win the game late game. So we have 2 of those. Actually mid game as well. Mid to late game it ends up being very, very good. And then we have our basic lands. So we have 3 basic forests for us. So 23 lands total. And I think the distribution of mana costs is 19 green and 10 split for red and white, which is pretty appropriate. We don't need a whole lot of red and white, and we also do have fixing for white with Avacyn's Pilgrim and also Farseek to search for all of our shocklands that we need appropriately. So now we are going to jump into the creatures and everything else. So we have 23 creatures in the deck, starting off with Avacyn's Pilgrim, and with Avacyn's Pilgrim we are running it as a playset. It's a turn 1 optimal play where we are going to be able to play our 3 cost cards like Loxodon Smiter and be able to just do our 3 drops on turn 2, but ultimately it accelerates us along and it lets us play a turn sooner than our opponent. And it's pretty decent as far as early game goes. Late game it's kind of lackluster, but at the same time you have to run that playset just to have that effectiveness of actually being able to draw it and the consistency to actually draw it. So playset of Avacyn's Pilgrim. We have a playset of Loxodon Smiter, so he's a 4/4 for 3 mana. He can't be countered, and if he's discarded from our hands from a ability that our opponent controls, then we are able to put him onto the battlefield instead of putting him into the grave. So with Loxodon Smiter, he's a well-rounded creature, especially as far as aggro goes. We can drop a 4/4 on turn 3 or turn 2, and it can just sit there and not let aggro do what it's supposed to do, and it lets us build up into our mid to late game. But ultimately, Loxodon Smiter is a pretty fair card. It's good against control as well because it can't be countered. And it's a definite play. You know you're going to be playing it because they can't counter it. And if for some reason it's discarded by like Rakdos' Return or something like that, we get to put it into play. From there we have Huntmaster of the Fells. So Huntmaster is a 3/of. So he is a 2/2 for 4. He gives us 2 life and another 2/2 wolf whenever he enters the battlefield. If he flips, he turns into a 4/4 that deals 2 damage to a creature and 2 damage to our opponent, which isn't bad. Then we have Restoration Angel, so this is going to be a playset as well. This is going to play off of stuff like Centaur Healer that we have in the sideboard, Huntmaster of the Fells, Loxodon Smiter as far as combat shenanigans and things go if we need another blocker, Thragtusk, Thundermaw Hellkite. There's always things that you can hit into with Restoration Angel, exile it and bring it back, and then have some kind of ETB ability. But ultimately, it works as evenly well for, like I mentioned, having a tapped Loxodon Smiter, bringing in Restoration Angel to have it come in untapped, and then being able to use it as a blocker when your opponent doesn't think you have blockers available. So playset of Restoration Angel for all the tricks, and it's a flying creature 3/4, so it gets in damage pretty well. Then we have Thragtusk, as you guys could imagine. So Thragtusk is going to be a playset for us here. So 5/3 for 5, enters the battlefield, we gain 5 life. Leaves the battlefield, we get a 3/3. Ultimately really good up against any aggro type shenanigans. We can bounce back from taking a whole lot of life in the really early game. Then we have Thundermaw Hellkite. So with Thundermaw, he enters the battlefield. He's a 5/5 for 5, flying haste, tap down. He taps down all of our opponent's flying creatures and deals 1 damage to them. So ultimately, turn 5, if we drop him, or earlier if we're able to ramp, we can just start dealing 5 damage per turn, and it's a pretty nice outlet just to be able to win the game off of cards like Thundermaw Hellkite, and it does happen very often if our opponent doesn't have means to be able to deal with him or to block him. So Thundermaw as a 2-of is really strong. Another card that we are adding into the deck after Gate crashes out here is Aurelia, the Warleader, or Aurelia, however you guys want to pronounce it. I'm actually running 2 of them in the deck, and she's been working out very perfectly. She's a 3/4 for 6, flying vigilance and haste, and whenever she attacks, untap. Whenever she attacks for the first time, I should say, because that is important. Whenever she attacks for the first time each turn, untap all creatures that we control, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So it lets us Alpha Strike and then Alpha Strike again, and turn 6 Aurelia is really just, it's really nuts. Being able to swing in, especially if we already have things like Thundermaw, it just assures us a win, and it's pretty solid overall. Herself, she's going to be swinging in for 6, 3 the first time, 3 the second time, so that's already 6 damage there on top of any other things that we have that would be swinging in, like maybe Restoration Angel, Thundermaw Hellkite, maybe Loxodon Smiter, something like that, but ultimately it gives us a really strong Alpha Strike turn 6 or earlier if we're able to ramp into playing her earlier. Then we have our non-creature spells, so we have 2 Domri Rade. So Domri Rade is nice in the deck. He's a 3 loyalty, 3 cost planeswalker. His +1 lets us look at the top card of our library. If it's a creature, we get to, we can reveal it and put it into our hand. So that's definitely nice because we do run 23 creatures, so it happens a decent bit. But the second ability is what I like the most. The -2, a target creature control fights another creature. So with stuff like Restoration Angel, Loxodon Smiter, sometimes Thragtusk, also Thundermaw Hellkite, those are all perfect cards that you can have fight your opponent's other creatures and just get rid of your opponent's creatures. So it's almost like you have a removal outlet on a stick with Domri Rade, and it's been working out very well just because it's really good even in the mid-range versus mid-range matchups where you're just able to get rid of their things if you have one thing that's even slightly bigger than what they have. So I love Domri Rade in this deck, but being able to search for more creatures is nice, and being able to fight is really nice as well. I haven't really played off of the -7 very much, but the +1 and the -2 are definitely very good. Then we have Garruk Primal Hunter. So Primal Hunter is a lot better for the slower matchups, but he's even still good in game 1 whenever we're playing up against fast decks. So he's a 5 cost, 3 loyalty planeswalker. +1 gives us 3/3s, -3 lets us draw cards equal to the greatest power amongst creatures we control. So if we have like Thragtusk out, we would be able to draw 5. Thundermaw Hellkite, we would be able to draw 5. So that's like the peak of what we would be able to do with Garruk Primal Hunter as far as drawing cards goes. Even with Loxodon Smiter, that would be drawing 4 cards, which is still equally as good. But being able to make 3/3s is really strong, and being able to draw cards is really strong with Garruk Primal Hunter. Again, the -6 is there, the ultimate is there, and if you can hit it off without being wrathed or something like that, if they don't have Terminus, Supreme Verdict, something like that, then you pretty much have the win. But otherwise, I don't really play off of the -6 very much. It's mainly just the +1 and the -3, so it's basically like Domri Rade. I'm using the first and second abilities more than anything else. Then we have our other spells here. So we have a playset of Farseek that lets us ramp and fix, so lets us search for our shocklands. We have a playset of Searing Spear, so instant speed, deal 3 damage to target creature or player. This is more so for the early aggro decks than anything else. Just be able to kill X 3 or less creatures that are a nuisance, or anything that they're trying to get an advantage by making it bigger or something like that. We just want to get rid of annoying creatures, so we use Searing Spear to get rid of them early on, and we don't have to worry too much about them. And then we have Aurelia's Fury, or again, Aurelia's Fury, however you guys want to pronounce it. But I'm running 2 Fury in the deck as well, so instant speed, X, 1 red and 1 white, and it deals X damage divided as we choose amongst players or creatures. And each creature that's dealt damage that way is going to be tapped, and if a player is dealt damage this way, they can't cast non-creature spells. So the best thing about Fury is being able to cast it during our opponent's upkeep if we're playing up against control, and then they don't have the outlet to wrath us, which is definitely really, really strong. So that's one of the biggest things that I liked about Fury, but at the same time, it lets us have an alpha strike whenever we're playing up against other creature heavy decks, because we can tap down all of their things provided enough mana, and then we can swing alpha, which in most cases will be the game win for us. So Fury is as a 2-of, and it's been working very, very well. It's a really strong card, and it's definitely a card that a lot of decks that have the outlets of red and white are going to be trying to take advantage of. Now we're going to take a look at the sideboard options that we have. So we have Boros Charm. This is just as a 1-of, and I just wanted this as a 1-of to have in the sideboard up against control-based decks, because when they hit a Wrath, it does hurt. We can bounce back from it pretty easily if we didn't overextend way too far. But Boros Charm is a nice means because it gives all of our permanents indestructible, so they're going to survive that Wrath. Obviously, this isn't going to help against Terminus, but more so it's going to help against early games where they're just going to be banking off of Supreme Verdict. It also lets us deal 4 damage or give a creature double strike, which is also relevant if we want to alpha strike and we just need like 1 more 5 damage from a creature, like from Thundermaw or something that's keeping us from winning the game. Just give a double strike and you have the game win right there. So 1 Boros Charm. We also have Oblivion Ring as a 2-of in the sideboard, so just being able to exile our opponent's things. Good against aggro, good against control. It just gives you a open means to more removal in the deck, and it's a little bit more broad than what Searing Spear would be as far as creature removal goes, even though it's not at an instant speed. Then we have Centaur Healer, so we're running 3 Centaur Healer in the sideboard, pretty much the same as last season, where we are able to gain 3 life, and it's just a 3/3 for 3, but it's a good means of gaining back life and having another blocker for aggro. So 3 Centaur Healers. We also have 1 more Garruk Primal Hunter for the slower matchups, control, other mid-range as well. We are able to play Garruk a little bit more effectively because we don't have to play all of our early things a little bit more effectively. We can just have a little bit more of a loose early game and still be able to play off of Garruk, make our dudes, and be able to draw and have a little bit more of a advantage with using him. So anything that's a slower matchup, I like siding in another Garruk Primal Hunter. From there, we have 1 Zealous Conscripts to take our opponent's things and use it against them. So haste, 3/3 for 5, take an opponent's permanent, untap it, and gains haste. So 1 of the conscripts. Then we have Rest in Peace, because Reanimator-based decks are really annoying, especially the human Reanimator builds. So we have 3 Rest in Peace in the sideboard that we are able to just exile their graveyard. It's not something that we are just right off the bat going to exile their things. We want to have a optimal time when we're going to be using the Rest in Peace to get rid of their graveyard, because they can always respond with some hate, like enchantment hate, and just be able to get rid of the Rest in Peace. So we want to have the optimal time to actually have it resolve, hit the table, exile their things from their graveyard, and then if they want to respond with removal on it, then okay, they can go ahead with that, but it doesn't change the fact that we are still getting rid of their graveyard. So we have 3 Rest in Peace. It's a really good means of being able to deal with Reanimator-based decks. We also have Ray of Revelation, which is another card that the Reanimator decks have that they can use for enchantment hate, but we also have it in here for Oblivion Rings, Detention Spheres, any enchantments that our opponent's trying to use that could be potentially hazardous to playing against them. So the Ray of Revelation, I think more so for control, it's used for Detention Spheres and Oblivion Rings than I cited in for anything else, but it's still a good means of being able to get rid of enchantments, and it also has a flashback, so it's useful, again, if we want to flash it back. So 2 Ray of Revelation. And then we have 2 Nevermore, so it's a pretty white-heavy sideboard, but it works for us. So we have the Nevermore's 1 generic and double white. As it enters the battlefield, we name a non-land card, and the named card can't be cast. So it's pretty much like having Slaughter games, except it's not really as proactive, where it just gets rid of everything. It's a little bit more passive in nature because it can still be dealt with enchantment hate, but at the same time, it does provide us some time and the ability to play into more things before our opponent's able to resolve something to deal with Nevermore. But we can name things that our opponent needs, and we can effectively get rid of them, or at least not let them play them. So this is the Naya Midrange deck that I'm playing for the beginning of the Gatecrash season of Standard. So if you guys enjoyed this deck tech, please be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe for more Magic the Gathering content. There is a playlist with all the previous decks that I've done in the description down below, so be sure to check that out if you guys want to see more deck techs and the stuff that I previously covered. But yeah, until next time, guys, have yourselves a wonderful, fun-filled Magic the Gathering day.